Pay attention to the woman entering the lobby at 9:18 p.m. She only stopped for gas, lights buzzing, engine ticking, one last errand before home. What she didn't know was that someone was already watching her. A stranger hiding in plain sight. A decision made in seconds. By the time she stepped back toward her car, it was already too late. One routine stop, one unseen predator, and a moment that would turn a quiet gas station into the scene of a nightmare no one saw coming. At 9:42 p.m. on Friday, October 14, 2016, a black and white CCTV feed flickers to life inside a county evidence room. The camera shows a gas station forecourt under fluorescent lights. A woman steps out of a sedan, swipes her card, and waits. The timestamp freezes at 21:42:31. 23 minutes later, the same camera records her car rolling out of frame without her. The pump handle dangles. No alarm sounds. At 7:18 a.m. the next morning, a maintenance worker finds her body behind a stand of scrub trees less than a mile away. She is still wearing her work badge. Her phone is gone. The obvious explanation, random violence at a roadside stop, settles in quickly. It will not survive the week. The woman is identified as Elena Morales, 32 years old. The date is Saturday, October 15, 2016. The location is Pine Ridge, a small city intersected by a state highway that carries trucks through the night. The initial police bulletin uses the phrase suspected carjacking. It sounds neat. It sounds plausible. It is wrong. Elena had finished a late shift at the outpatient clinic where she worked as a billing coordinator. She lived alone in a rented duplex 12 minutes from the clinic. Her route was routine. She stopped at the same gas station twice a week, usually to top off the tank and buy a bottle of water. The station's cameras had captured her dozens of times before, unremarkable, anonymous. On this night, she arrived at 9:41 p.m., paid at the pump, and stepped back into the glare of the lights. They don't know this yet, but the reason she stopped is not fuel. Her dashboard light had been flickering for days, and she wanted the reassurance of a full tank before the weekend. She planned to drive to her mother's house in the morning. Elena's life was small in the way many lives are small. She worked. She called her sister on Sundays. She watched a cooking show before bed. She paid her rent early. She kept receipts in an envelope. Her coworkers describe her as precise. At 8:59 p.m., she clocked out. At 9:03 p.m., she texted her sister a photo of a stray cat she'd fed behind the clinic. At 9:20 p.m., she left the parking lot. Nothing in her routine suggests danger. The key relationships emerge slowly. Elena had been dating a man named Marcus Hale for 8 months. He owned a mobile detailing business and lived across town. Friends noticed tension in the weeks before her death. Marcus had borrowed money. He had asked questions about Elena's savings. He had suggested they move in together, then criticized her caution when she declined. The arguments were not loud. They were quiet and persistent. Money becomes the hidden motive that refuses to stay hidden. Elena had received an insurance settlement 2 months earlier after a minor car accident. The amount was modest, just under $38,000, but to Marcus it represented relief. His business had fallen behind. 2 clients had canceled. His truck needed repairs. Elena had told him she planned to use the settlement to pay off student loans and build an emergency fund. The word "no" appears in several text threads. The planning phase begins with small, almost invisible steps. On October 10th, Marcus purchases a prepaid phone with cash at a big box store 15 miles from his home. The receipt shows 6:12 p.m. The phone is activated 2 hours later. Over the next 3 days, it pings cell towers along Elena's commute. On October 13th, Marcus searches online for ATM withdrawal limits and cash advance fees. At 11:02 p.m., he transfers $400 from his business account to a personal account, then withdraws it in 2 increments. Surveillance is casual at first. Marcus drives past the clinic once on October 11th, twice on October 12th. On October 13th, he parks across the street at 8:15 p.m. and waits. The clinic's security camera captures his truck idling. He leaves at 8:47 p.m. and returns at 9:05 p.m. He follows Elena at a distance when she pulls out at 9:20. He keeps one car between them. They don't know this yet, but the gas station stop is the hinge on which the night turns. Elena's sedan enters the forecourt at 9:41 p.m. Marcus pulls in at 9:43 p.m. and parks near the air pump. He steps out, pretends to check a tire, and watches. The prepaid phone records no calls. The moment does not require coordination. It requires patience. At 9:52 p.m., Elena finishes fueling and gets back into her car. She does not leave. She opens her door again and reaches into the back seat, possibly for her bag. At 9:55, Marcus approaches. The angle is poor. There is no sound. What can be seen is proximity. His shoulder blocks the lens for 3 seconds. At 9:56, Elena's car moves forward 10 feet and stops. At 9:57, Marcus is in the driver's seat. Elena is not visible. Minute by minute, the timeline tightens. 9:57, the sedan exits the station. 9:01, it turns onto a side road. 9:06, it passes a traffic camera near the industrial park. 9:19, it disappears into a stretch without coverage. At 10:29, Marcus's personal phone pings a tower near his home. At 10:27, Elena's phone goes dark. The crime itself unfolds away from cameras. Investigators will later reconstruct it using tire impressions, a torn sleeve, and a single footprint. Elena was taken to a clearing behind a closed warehouse. She was forced out of the car. She resisted. The cause of death is blunt force trauma to the head. The medical examiner estimates the time of death between 10:10 and 10:30 p.m. She did not know she would not make it home. The investigation begins with the wrong question. Detectives canvass the area for reports of car theft. They release a description of Elena's sedan. They interview gas station clerks about suspicious strangers. They do not look closely at Marcus for 48 hours. When they do, it is because Elena's sister insists. She brings in texts. She brings in screenshots. She brings in the knowledge that random is sometimes a word used to stop asking. Evidence accumulates in pieces. The sedan is found on October 16th, abandoned behind an apartment complex. Inside, investigators find a smear of blood on the center console and Marcus's fingerprint on the steering wheel, fresh and clear. His explanation, that he had driven the car days earlier, is contradicted by Elena's co-workers. She had not let him drive it. The prepaid phone becomes a turning point. A tower dump shows a device activated on October 10, moving in parallel with Elena's route. Store video places Marcus at the register. The clerk remembers the cash. The phone is recovered from a storm drain 2 blocks from Marcus's house. It is smashed, but the SIM survives. Mistakes compound. Marcus attempts to withdraw $2,000 from Elena's account at 11:04 p.m. on October 14th using her card. The ATM denies the transaction due to a daily limit. The camera captures his face. He wears a baseball cap, but the angle is unforgiving. At 11:11 p.m., he sends a text from Elena's phone to her sister, "Running late, love you." The punctuation is wrong. The sister notices immediately. By October 18th, the obvious explanation has collapsed. Detectives obtain a warrant. Marcus is arrested at 6:22 a.m. outside his home. He does not resist. In his truck, officers find a flashlight with traces of blood and a pair of gloves with soil matching the clearing. In his trash, they find torn receipts. In his search history, they find the word inheritance misspelled. The trial begins on May 3, 2017, in county court. The prosecution lays out the timeline with exactness, dates, times, towers. The defense argues circumstantial evidence. They suggest coincidence. The jury watches the gas station footage again and again. 21:42:31, 21:56:02. The repetition becomes a drumbeat. Elena's sister testifies. She reads the last text. The clerk testifies about the cash. The medical examiner testifies about force and timing. Marcus does not testify. On May 19, 2017, the jury returns a verdict of guilty on charges of first-degree murder and financial exploitation. Sentencing follows on June 12th. Marcus receives life without the possibility of parole. The moral reflection arrives quietly. Elena did not make a dangerous choice. She made an ordinary one. She stopped under bright lights at a familiar place. The warning is not about gas stations or nights or fear. It is about patterns that harden into plans, about how control can dress itself as need, about how the most lethal decisions are sometimes made long before the moment they are carried out.